Hello, friends. Host Eric here. I was talking with famous people, and Eric Strauss, presidential candidate for 2020. As a candidate for presidency, it's very important to me to be able to answer any and all questions of political nature that the citizenry poses to me. I think that that's the most important thing that happened for a presidential election is that the presidential candidate actually answer questions, not avoid them, not create sound bites, but actually answer them. Okay, so here we go. First question is involving the death penalty. Suppose a terrorist is caught after bombing a lot of people. He's very clear in his opinions and thinks that anyone who opposes them doesn't deserve to live. That is why he bombed the place with full intention of killing. I don't know what to put in details of his opinion, but just know that his opinion somehow violates very basic and important rights of people. And his adherence to those opinions and insistence of killing those who goes against them shows complete lack of empathy. Now, any normal person would be completely infuriated and not mind the death penalty given to them. So my question is, how fair is it to kill this person? I know that there is a gut response that everybody has, that there are a few things which, if someone says them to you, you just want to kill them. First of all, should we really trust this feeling and act on it? Now, coming back to sentencing, I know that a person with this kind of opinion is very dangerous to let live, at least freely, but how much do we associate the current opinion of a person to the whole of the person? What I'm trying to say is that suppose that person is an INFJ. But first, can we say that a certain kinds of life events can exist that would make, for example, a healthy INFJ without any mental disorder, that person can every type become that person given a certain blah, 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 blah? This is a very complicated question. Uh, and opinions formed or proper logical conclusions made that person to the best of his ability. Or suppose the person is an INFJ and we know they are not bad people. So now do you think the person should be killed or simply taught and then changed? There's no need for any punishment. Punishment doesn't even make sense here because bad analysis can be changed by helping the person out, and you don't really need to do anything physical to the person for changing their physical conclusion. Yada yada yada. Okay, so the thing he says these seem very moral arguments to me that we necessarily must need to know things about the individual to make conclusions about whether or not we should use the death penalty or etc. Um, to a certain set of cognitive functions, empathy level, and other things exist so we can say that if we come across a person who seems evil, we simply check these physical things in them and say that, okay, this person does not really need to be physically punished, just taught the right way, or no, this person can't be changed. If yet, what are they? All right, well, let me explain what's going on here with this question and the issue that it actually raises. So there are there's more than one purpose for the criminal justice system. The issue of punishment as a society serves multiple purposes. The implication in this question is that only rehabilitative justice is legitimate, that our goal ought to be to rehabilitate somebody who commits a crime, and that if we can, in fact, ensure they're not going to commit any more crimes and they're now a normal functioning member of society, that they shouldn't be punished, that somehow this is necessarily the case. But in fact, we need to account for not just rehabilitative justice, but retributive justice. So it is appropriate that somebody who's been harmed in a crime get retributive justice, get a sense of some equilibrium being attained. The Bible says an eye for an eye. Well, I don't necessarily believe that attaining justice requires an exact equivalency of harm done to the person who's transgressed by society. In fact, I would disagree with that. I would say, however, there is a need to attain some manner of retributive justice as well as concern ourselves with rehabilitative justice. Rehabilitative justice is much more a matter of concern when we start criminalizing things that aren't transgressions. Um, if I kill your mother because I don't like the way she looks, then the only way to attain retributive justice is for my own life to be sacrificed in some fashion. Now, ought we attain that sacrifice of a life by the death penalty? In general, I would argue no. I believe that the death penalty is wrong for a number of reasons. Let's talk about the example you gave, where the terrorist killed a bunch of people, is caught, and is merely an advocate of his respective positions, yada, yada, yada. Well, first of all, we're relying on our own certainty that his expression of reality, that he did it and that these are his reasons, is accurate. He could be a crazy guy taking responsibility for something he didn't do, in which case we wouldn't want to punish him for the crime because that would let the actual perpetrator go free. If we use the death penalty, we guarantee that our judgment is rendered absolutely final regarding that person. Now, note, our judgment is rendered absolutely final regarding that person no matter what. The months spent in prison don't get returned to him when we decide that we made the wrong decision. But at least we can, yeah, I'm ready to go. All right, I'm going to finish this video right now and we're going to go to lunch. So, anyway, that's the answer to my question is when talking about issues of justice in general, we need to consider two factors, rehabilitative justice and retributive justice. And when talking about retributive justice or rehabilitative justice, we need to consider proportionality, equivalency, harm done, stuff like that. And we also need to consider the fact that our own judgment is not perfect, that there will be instances where we make mistakes. And while the harms that we do to the innocent in making those mistakes are irrevocable, we can't go back in time and make it so he didn't spend time in jail. The death penalty is irrevocable in a way that those are not. And so, out of a general sense of humility regarding our own certainty and ability to discern things with absolute truth, we ought not use the death penalty as a general rule. There might be exceptions in which, well, I put it this way. There are instances of using the death penalty that are worse and instances that are better. And there are instances in which few people will shed few tears. And in those instances, I think the energy directed towards fighting against those specific applications of the death penalty is energy that maybe ought to be directed elsewhere, although I agree that we ought to argue the principle, not the instance, regarding something like the death penalty. So that's my answer to it, and hopefully it clears up my policy prescriptions on the matter, which is, first of all, I believe it would be appropriate that the Supreme Court rule that the death penalty is a cruel and unusual form of punishment. But more important, there are vastly more important kinds of punishment that ought to be ruled cruel and unusual, or disallowed on that criterion, I guess I should say, by the Supreme Court before it even bothers to addressing the death penalty, which affects very few people compared to other things. So that's my perspective on it. It's not a legislative priority for me, not part of my legislative agenda as the executive. It's not part of my duties to address as the executive, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to issue any kind of executive order regarding it or anything like that. It's not within the scope of the executive branch. So it's not something I'm likely to have any impact on, but that's my position on it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese, and don't forget to vote. Eric Strauss, President 2020. Also, please go to my GoFundMe page and contribute to my campaign. It's money well spent. I will become president of the United States, and I will change things dramatically and for the better. Or go to the store, TwFPcollectibles.com, buy a shirt like this. You can look as badass as me. I'm looking pretty sharp.